he's had a good week to work on his side of the story. Or he doesn't have to change his story. He could just add new elements. I mean, this is what people in high positions do all the time.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
It's spin control.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. But then, of course, Kelly will get to speak on Wednesday, and he can kind of re-spin it the way he wants to. The one guy who won't speak in all this is probably Howie Roseman, and that's kind of interesting because obviously he got launched under the bus 2 weeks ago by Kelly. But here we are now, and obviously we're looking forward to the next 2 days. But I want to go back to the big move, which was Sam Bradford. And, your gut feeling right now, is Bradford the guy that we'll see here, or do you think that there is still some hope that they can make a move, and that if they don't make a move, then Bradford will be extended?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've written, Mike. I feel like Chip went into this all season saying, I need more than one option. I obviously realize how difficult it would be for him to get Marcus Mariota. We know he would love to get him, that's obvious, but picking at 20, and then also the fact that he probably knew he was going to be, gutting the roster and would need to fill it in free agency and really can't trade all of his draft picks. He needed an insurance plan. And, he had decided that Nick Foles was not his guy. I think he made that decision fairly early in the process. As a personal note, I don't understand how a guy who's 14-4 in 18 games would not be his guy, or how he expects Sam Bradford or someone to do better than that. But that's just, what I feel. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way as well. A lot of people feel differently. Regardless, he gave himself plans and options. And like I said, insurance. So he goes out and gets a guy that he thinks is better for his team than Sam Bradford. Now, the dream of Mariota isn't dead. You never know. Guys tumble. Knows what's going to happen. But if he doesn't get Mariota or another person he might envision, whether it's Brett Hundley, I have no idea. He at least has somebody he's comfortable with going forward into the season. And I do think Bradford is the type of guy he was looking for as far as what was available.
Geoff Mosher's with us, Mosher Monday, CSNPhilly.com, Eagles Insider. Last week, while I was gone, Tim Tebow came in, and I know for about 25 minutes the uproar was unbelievable. And, Chip Kelly says the team was just kind of doing its homework with Tebow. And then there were some reports, though, if they can trade Barkley, that Tebow would be the third guy. Is there anything new to suggest that Tebow could be an Eagle this year?
Well, Chip hasn't talked to most of the media today, but he did, I believe, do an interview with NFL Network. He was asked about it, and he basically said he was just doing his diligence, which is what every single coach does. And so it didn't surprise me that he said that or did that. The report that you referenced was strange to me because it said that signing Tebow was contingent upon being able to trade Matt Barkley. And I don't understand the connection there because right now the rosters can be at 90. You can sign Tim Tebow and 5 other quarterbacks if you want and then release them tomorrow if you feel like it. I don't understand why that you would have to release a quarterback right now to sign one, especially with the rosters being as big as they are. So that's where I stand on that.
Then what is then the future for Barkley? I mean, is it obvious they want to move him? Do they feel that he's just not a fit? What do you think Barkley's future is?
They were trying to move on from him last year, and I just don't think that there's a lot of takers,
With good reason, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I understood the strategy a couple of years ago. You always want to get a guy. I mean, first of all, it's good to draft a quarterback in mid to late rounds anyway. I mean, a lot of good teams do that. Packers do that too. So there's nothing wrong with that. It seemed like, though, by trading up for him in the fourth, even though they had other quarterbacks on the roster and maybe that Matt didn't fit what Chip was looking for, you always thought it's almost a Hinkie-like way of getting a commodity and then being able to flip that commodity. The only problem is that every single person has played well in Chip's offense so far except for Matt Barkley. And it's been a very, very small sample size, obviously. But the bottom line is when he played, he didn't look very good. So I don't know what the trade value is. And it's tough to trade a guy. If they use the 4th-round pick on him, they probably don't want to get lower than a 4th-round pick, ideally. But at this point, I don't think they can really be choosy about what they were to get if they were going to get something for him.
Hey, what do you make of McCoy's comments? I know John Gonzalez over at CSN Philly wrote that there might have been some sort of rift maybe between those guys, and that's why that he ended up moving them. Do you buy that? That McCoy kind of seemed like, hey, they needed 2 guys to replace me. It doesn't make a lot of sense with what they did there. How do you read into what McCoy ultimately said there? Because I thought, it is kind of interesting that they brought two guys in for McCoy, but I guess that could be, hey, we don't want to have to rely on one guy.
Yeah, I feel like LeSean is probably upset just by – I think he may have understood it at first. Okay, you're getting traded, you're saving $11 million. I think he, like the rest of us, didn't think that the Chip was going to turn around and put a whole lot of money back right into the running back position, so that it almost looks like a lateral move. Yeah, you get 2 for 1, but the one you gave away was a guy who was led the NFL in rushing and then finished third, and the 2 guys you got, one led the NFL in rushing but has injury problems, and the other guy's always been hurt. So LeSean probably looks at it like a slap in the face, like, oh, you were just trying to get rid of me, not saving money. And, I never heard or got the feeling that there was a terrible rift between them. I know LeSean wasn't happy about some of his carries, short yardage situations, going to other guys last year, whether it would be Sproles or Polk. He felt like his role was semi-diminished. I mean, he still had a lot of carries last year, but and of course, by the end of the season, he saw it coming that something was going to happen, figuring on a restructure, and he said he was willing to take a pay cut, but then he wound up getting bounced out of there anyway. So I'm sure he's a little bit offended by it and used the opportunity to kind of get back at the club. But as far as like a big-time rift or something, I don't think that that's the case. I don't think these guys were at each other's throats a lot.
Yeah, and then he kind of indicated that it was a panic move, that, Gore walked down on him, so they had to do something. Obviously when they had Gore, they weren't going to sign Murray and Gore, but maybe they would have signed Gore and Matthews. But did Murray fall into their lap because of Bradford, or was he be the next type of guy they would have gone after Gore walked out on him?
Well, I know Chip really liked Gore and felt he was a great fit for the system. So I suspect that, and based off what Chip said, is that they targeted him from the start. We think we can get Frank Gore and then somebody else like Ryan Matthews. I believe that they didn't think that the Cowboys were going to let DeMarco go like that. And obviously it took a while for the market to materialize, and so for the first week first few days you didn't hear much about DeMarco, and then obviously when they lost Frank Gore and then the Cowboys didn't retain DeMarco, I think it was one of those opportunities that they seized upon that they didn't expect to happen when they went into free agents.
We're talking with Geoff Mosher, CSNPhilly.com, Eagles insider here. What is the latest on Evan Matthews? I'm reading a tweet here from Jim Corbett of the USA Today that basically says, look, the Eagles have given the agent of Evan Matthews, freedom to go out and find to whoever he wants. Are they still? It would assume that they're still trying to move him. It looks like, correct?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like Groundhog Day, Mike, because this is the exact time last year that we first heard the rumors about Evan Matthews being on the trading block at owners' meeting. If you remember, it was the Deshaun and Evan Matthews owners' meetings that dominated the storylines for Chip's roundtable on that Wednesday. So. This is the second straight year, and it's the same deal. I do. This is different. I mean, I think that they're trying to get rid of him now, just like as they were last year. If you remember, Evan wants more money. I mean, he wants a better deal, but he's also 33, and he had just signed a deal a couple of years ago, and it doesn't look like they want to give him more money. It doesn't look like they want to give anybody who's over the age of 30 right now more money. Chip is trying to remake the roster. So I think everything that happened last year, it just carries over this year. Even though Evan made the Pro Bowl again, he's still one of these guys who was brought in by a different regime, and the new regime is making new moves.
Yeah, 5.5 this year, $6 million next year, and then he's a free agent. I was going to follow up. Why are they okay with moving a guy who's been very steady for them? I know he was hurt this year, but since he's been here, he's been a gem of a find. I mean, I don't think they anticipated that he was going to be the player he's become. He has,
no doubt. But I mean, again, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I know he'd like. He probably would like a better contract.
No doubt.
He signed. He seems very team friendly, especially since he's made now 2 Pro Bowls. And so if they don't want to deal with that constant headache of a guy asking for more money, even though Evan was very behaved about it, he didn't come out, he didn't rip the organization or anything.
No.
But again, it's a confluence of that and them trying to move on and get younger anyway. I mean, he did miss time with the knee injury. They're clearly getting younger with some of their moves. So I imagine that Chip has a little bit more of a idea of what he wants from an offensive line that might be different than the prior regime. So we'll see because they have to replace 2 guards now if Matthews does go.
Geoff, are they capped out? What is their cap situation? What can they do anything in free agency moving forward? Or are they pretty much done?
Well, I mean, I think they could, Mike. I mean, even though they're close to the cap, it's not like you can't do a deal where you have a guy only making $1 million or $2 million in the first year, and then next year his salary jumps up a little bit. They can be creative, but it doesn't sound based on what Chip said in his last press conference. I don't know if the guys that are out there are the guys that he's looking for right now.
Jeff,
especially a wide receiver.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about wide receiver. What is next? I mean, do you get a guy? Is there any free agency, or is this just him saying, much like Andy did, that's not an important position for us. We think we can go out there and pretty much use what we got.
I mean, I guess Chip will never say that, even though his actions reflect that. He's not going to say wide receiver is not important for us, but certainly he thinks he can do well. He can get a guy to play well, and it doesn't have to pay him $12 million or $11 million, whatever Jeremy made. And Chip was the one to volunteer that he didn't think there was anybody in free agency that he was probably going to get, and that the draft was strong with wide receivers again. This is obviously a position that he probably feels he's going to have to bolster through the draft.
Hey, Jeff, I was out last week when this happened, but if you can kind of just recap.
Mike.
I know you were on. I was off.
Where were you?
I heard you. I heard you on. I was off. Connor Barwin's restructure. Just kind of give us a quick little briefing on why that happened and what was the reasoning. Because while guys are getting money taken away and getting cut, they gave him more money.
Yeah, and it wound up not being a whole lot different. It's strange. They guaranteed $750,000 each year going forward, starting next year. But he already had a $750,000 a year escalator clause if he reaches incentives. So basically, they guaranteed him his incentives instead of making him earn it. And then they also gave him a little more money, fully guaranteed money. And what it basically does is, remember, when they signed Brandon Graham, they signed him to a contract worth about $6.5 annually. And that was very close to what Barwin was making. And my only assumption is that, Barwin just had 14.5 sacks, made a Pro Bowl. He's obviously a very instrumental part of the defense. And they felt like they needed to have a little bit more separation financially between Barwin and Graham, seeing that Graham has never been a starter even, and they gave him that money. So I think they were just trying to do good business, and some people have said it's not good business when you have a team-friendly contract and you give more money, but it's not like they showered him with a whole lot more millions. They just basically guaranteed some of the incentives he would have made and gave him a little bit more guaranteed money. It basically means he's going to be on the roster this year and then next year also, because it's $3 million of his $6 million guaranteed. So
Jeff,
or they cut him and he makes $3 million. So
one of the questions I get, and I'm sure you hear more than anything, is they got rid of Macklin, they got rid of Jackson, but they kept Cooper. Can you explain to people why they have to kind of keep Cooper around as opposed to cutting him?
Well, I mean, Chip talks about his blocking a lot, Mike, and he likes big guys on the perimeter, and they have money invested in him from last year's contract. Now, I know they've cut other guys they had money invested in, but not as much, I don't think. I know they can, if they cut him after June 1st, they can not owe him as much, but there's still money on it, and he's still a guy that knows the system, and they absolutely have no wide receivers right now, so it doesn't make sense for them to just nix him off the roster also. I mean, he has produced in some form and capacity for them in the past. I mean, he's obviously not going to go into the year as their number one wide receiver. I'm pretty confident in saying that.
All right, Chip Kelly's going to speak.
Is that what you were looking at? Is that what you were trying to get at?
Well, I know a lot of people, it's mostly a monetary. If they cut him, they actually get more of a hit than if they actually keep him. So it's more like, hey, we're going to keep you around.
Right, but there's that.
Don't buy a house.
First cut. Yeah, there is a post-June 1st cut, which did not give him as much of a hit in the future. I think it was more this year. But, yeah, you're right. It's financial.
Chip Kelly will talk Wednesday. Other than the Jeff Lurie stuff, when he talks about it, what do you think Chip still needs to address that he didn't address last time he spoke?
I think he needs to, at least from my vantage point, what wasn't clear to me is why he was willing to overpay for Byron Maxwell, but not for Jeremy Macklin. Byron Maxwell's a really good corner, and I understand that they really needed cornerback, so they needed to get him. But they still had a lot of money after they got him, and then they went and put a lot of it into running back and let Macklin walk. So in this era of passing games, and he was such a great weapon for them last year, why did he put the money back into running back and then let a really good wide receiver walk, leaving him very empty there? Yeah,
very much so. So draft time, is wide receiver now entered the discussion in the first round?
It's a discussion, but it would not shock me at all if they went offensive line either. I mean, given the fact that Chip likes to run, he's obviously building around a power running game, but he now may need 2 guards, not just one. I still got to think offensive line has got to be right up there.
How long do you think Peters has? Did he look like he was slipping a little last year? I mean, are you concerned that Peters could hit one of those sharp declines?
I am. I mean, I was concerned at the end of the year. Now, part of it is his reputation, Mike, because if he gives up 1 sack in a game, he looks, everybody says, what is going on here? This guy never got, and normally you'd be all right with that. One sack on 70, remember they run 15% more plays than everybody else too. So it sticks out a little bit more when it's not that bad, but I did think he had tired legs at the end of the year. I don't think he was vintage Jason Peters. Still better than what you get, but yet, like you said, if that was the sign of some slippage and then you're going into this year, what are you going to get from the start? It's a question mark.
Yeah. All right, man. I know a lot going to be happening over the next 2 days with Lori speaking and then Chip Kelly, but there's never quiet time around the Chip Kelly era Birds, is there?
No, not at all. Actually, I just left the Bob Kraft press conference to talk to you, too, and he was talking a little bit about Chip, saying how he thinks he's very exciting and innovative and that Eagles fans should be very, very excited about having Chip.
Well, we brought this up before the first hour of the show, Jeff, where right now the Eagles almost look like a college football team where the coach is the biggest star more so than a player. I mean, Belichick is still – but it's still Brady and Belichick. It's not Belichick and Brady. It's Brady and Belichick. Chip Kelly right now is the most recognizable Eagle probably, like a college football team where the coach is the bigger star because those players change over so much.
You're absolutely right about that. I mean, especially when, usually it's the quarterback, but half the team can't stand the quarterback right now. So,
all right, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping in.
Sorry, not half the team. Half the fans is what I meant to say. Half the fans don't like the quarterback.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'll tell you, I was in Clearwater, Florida, where the Phillies play, but all anyone was talking about was the quarterback of the Eagles, 1,000 miles away. It's funny how that works sometimes. But all right, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you on TV tonight.